So, the necessary death of Jesus, it's required for us, but is also required of God, the Father. As Oswald Hoffman, he was the old speaker, some of you might remember him, of the Lutheran Hour radio show. I got to stand next to him when I was a puppy way back, and I was, 29 years old, just getting started in this business. And I was on the same stage with him because I was organizing his visit. We had a whole stadium full of people. That was in the good old days. And people came from all around to hear Ozzy Hoffman. And he started with the words, "I shall not forget." He said, "Ours is a bloody religion." It's not a religion of pristine cleanliness as we want to present, right? Everything's perfect. How soon we forget the required sacrifices. It's said that at the time of Jesus, that the number of animals that were being killed caused a stream of effluent and nasty discharge out of the great temple of Jerusalem and that flowed down into the street, and it stunk. And that's what our religion is based on, death. Not the happiness of our own willingness to come to Jesus and say, "Jesus, you're my friend, I've accepted you in my heart." That's not what it's based on at all, but on the requirement of sacrifice. So, I visit with a lot of people still in my advancing years, and I hear sometimes a young couple in their 30s, they have children, and they talk to each other, and they talk about sacrifice. And one says to the other, "Yeah, we've really sacrificed our lifestyle so that our kids can join this club and be in sports and be in that and get ready for school. We're really sacrificing." And I thought, no, you haven't sacrificed anything. You're still alive. I don't know how we manage to change definitions so easily. Giving up a soda pop is not sacrificial. Changing our schedule in order to meet somebody where we had a fun thing, of going maybe skiing in the mountains in the wintertime. I'm not going to do that. I'll sacrifice that so I can be with my family. That's not a sacrifice. That's a change of schedule. The things that we call sacrificial are puny, silly, almost sacrilegious, since sacrifice is a term that requires the definition of blood. And it's not just here. The whole world of sacrifice has always been around something has to die. If you look way back in your biblical record, you'll see that the great saints all got together, not for big church services, but to kill an animal. A lamb or a sheep or a goat or something like that, in order to show to God how much they loved him. And you see, how can that prove love? Well, because God knows we love our paychecks more than anything else, right? As some of the great preachers used to say, we follow our bellies. When our food is threatened, our livelihood, we'll do and just about say anything in order to get it back and get it straight. That's not sacrifice. The Almighty knows that giving up our jobs isn't sacrifice, but He understands how important it is to us in our basic human sinful condition, which is rebellion. And He says, "You know what? I gave it to you. I can take it back." And so the difference between Cain and Abel was what? The heart. Cain looked over his account books, Says, well, I guess I can cough up about $10.95 for God. Here's your check, God. Don't cash it till tomorrow. Then there's Abel. Abel, what a heart for the Lord. He gave up his first fruits. Now, I'm not a farmer. Obviously, you know that about me. But I lived in Kansas for 14 years, and I understand what that means. There are still men in Kansas and other farmers who collect the first crop of seed cut for the next year crop, and they store it. Not too many do that, but some still do. And that is the very best of the seed. It guarantees next year's what? Income. It's all about the money. Without it, we die. But that's what it's about. The Almighty has a string of requirements all through the Bible. I want your best bull. I was around cattle farmers, and some of the bulls they got down there in Kansas, they go for like $20,000 and $30,000. Some as much as $50,000. I'm not making that up. They're perfect. And they go around and service herds all over the place, and they make more of them, and it's an amazing business. So the Lord requires that in the biblical record from those farmers. Even then, he says, I want your bull. I want your best cow. If you don't have one of those, a bull. And if you don't have one of that, I want your best chickens. And it's not because he wants us to give up. He wants us to love him. And he said, I gave it to you in the first place. I know I've heard it. See, I got gray hair like you all. But Pastor, doesn't he give us a mind to be good, a thinking mind that we won't blow our money on silly things? Well, that's an interesting discussion, but it's not meant for this discussion of sacrifice. The Almighty requires. And you know what? We failed. That's the whole point. We failed so badly that at the time of the great temple where Jesus was in that time, and remember he threw the tables around and all that stuff? Remember all that? He was not getting mad at the people because they were having a little bazaar, a church bazaar. He was getting mad because there was no heart in it. They didn't have any heart. They were coming on pilgrimage from, let's say, Rome or Corinth or Africa or the Middle East. They were coming on pilgrimage to Jerusalem, the people. They usually did that about once in their lifetime. They'd come to the great temple, and they're supposed to bring their animals with them. But folks, what's easier? To put a sheep in your RV and carry it all around the Mediterranean? Or to put a little cash in your pocket, take a trip, visit relatives along the way, go to Jerusalem and pay for somebody at a table. Yeah, go down there in the pit and pick one of those nice sheep out for me. Here's a few bucks. The heart was missing. That's what he's after. Giving a few bucks, killing a little cow that belongs to somebody else, that's not sacrifice, not truly. He said, because the heart wasn't in it. That was then. And look at us now. Oh, he says we still need Jesus so much. As we redefine the hard teachings of the Bible. The sacrifice means I'm changing my schedule. My goodness. Anybody think like that? Yeah, we all think like that when it comes to something we don't want to do, and yet we end up doing it. You got to come to the family dinner, to keep peace in the family. You got to, right? Sacrifice that time going out north. Yeah, sacrifice. No, it's not sacrifice. Sacrifice means you would die getting there. When I marry people, I try to pound it into their head with a little hammer, a knowledge hammer. Boom, boom, boom. I said, men, the Bible says you are to love your wives. And they all with dreamy eyes say, I do, I love them. Yeah. Okay, that's good. You got to be ready to die for your wife. And they step back. Well, let me think about that. Don't think. That's what's required. As Jesus loved the church, that's in the rubrics. As Jesus loved the church, and how did he love the church? He gave his life as sacrifice for many. Men, you are to be ready to sacrifice your lives for your wives. And that doesn't mean giving up a Harley Davidson. That's not sacrifice. Goodness, I love motorcycles more than anybody here, and I don't have one because I promised my dear spouse I wouldn't ride one anymore. Just between you and me, my dad gave me a nickname. He called me Crash Verity. I always crashed on motorcycles. So my wife heard about that. She says, well, you're not going to have any of those if you're going to marry me. And I said, okay, I won't. Did I sacrifice? No. That's merely a decision. Much as I love two-wheel vehicles. Sacrifice means I'm ready to take a spear in the side, a rifle bullet, whatever it is, to protect my spouse. To be just like Jesus. That's love in action. That's why we call it when an officer of the law is taken down by an assailant, or a military personnel on a ship or a plane or on the field is killed. That's the ultimate sacrifice. That's it. The life. The life. So we're so pleased that we have a perfect advocate in Jesus, who, as the readings bore out and the text bore out itself, he didn't need to go to the cross for himself. He didn't need it. And I'm sure in his human condition, he didn't want to do it. And matter of fact, he says, Lord, take this away from me. I don't want to do it. But he did it. Now, the desire to do it wasn't the sacrifice. It was the fact that he actually stood up under the scourging, the Roman system of crucifixion. And then he allowed himself to be banged around, beat up, spit on, be naked on the old cross with nails through the hands. All that is lead up to the cessation of breath in his lungs and the stoppage of his heart pushing blood through his veins. He was dead, dead, dead. Absolutely. Then taken down and placed in a tomb. And he can't be placed in a tomb when you're sort of dead. You're only placed in a tomb when you're absolutely dead. And he was that. And that death then was absolutely necessary in order to make Sunday the most crucial day in the life of every Christian. Resurrection. Without his death, there's no resurrection. Without the resurrection, there's no faith. There's no heaven. But there is a death. It is. He made the perfect sacrifice for you and for me, and we don't actually have to think about us because we don't get there. We don't arrive at that place of sacrifice. Only he did. And we say, thank you so much. From the top to bottom and all parts of my body, I thank you, Lord, for taking my place, for being my sacrifice, required by God, because we are a bloody religious people. That's what we are. His blood, we the people. The necessity of his death. Let's bow our heads. Most Holy Father, we're so grateful. Not that we wanted it to happen to you, but that you provided your own solution to our rebellion, our questions, our doubts, and gave us your Son in perfect sacrifice. Bless us in that truth as we look forward to the resurrection of all people in you, those you've chosen by your precious blood, by your sacrifice. All this we ask in your precious name. Amen.